certain rules. Like, for example, there is an organization called IOFI, Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions. They are based in Bahrain, for example. They issue standard. This is like, you could say, mainstream standard, more sort of conservative that we see. And majority of the scholars, especially in the Gulf and the other region, follow these standards. So what we talk about here mainly complies with these standards. Now, don't confuse standard and what some banks are doing. This organization does not audit banks. So some banks, you have to check their contracts, how they do things, before we can say whether they're following this standard or that standard. So majority of the scholars would come and they would sit and discuss this standard. Like, for example, in a few years ago, we had an issue where one of the type of sukuk, or Islamic investment certificates, which they call sometimes incorrectly Islamic bonds, was debated whether it's Sharia compliant. It said it had certain conditions inside this that were rendering the whole transaction like interest-bearing instrument. So this body of scholars sit together, they were debating, discussing, and they issued that certainly putting it this way or that way, these equity-based sukuk, does not comply with Sharia. So we see these things are debated, discussed, in order to bring these classical usul fiqh principle in light of modern day transactions. So, for example, to fix this, to eliminate prohibited, for instance, in IOFI, they have certain ways of dealing with these particular contracts in order to fix these errors, because lease in its origin it's fine. It's just these conditions sometimes that you cannot make another contract. So, for example, IOFI would suggest that this be more like a promise and separated from the main contract, and it is given like a gift or some token payment or contingent on some other payments. So at the end, depending how this is done, there will be another thing where you transfer this in your possession. So there are all of these rules which we will look as we go along. Okay? So this is just idea of the contracts, how they work. We will not go now into these details. Now what we're going to do today is talk about Islamic perspective on wealth and money. Okay? Last time we touched on this topic. You remember what we said? What is Islamic view of the wealth? Is it something bad or evil, or what did we say? Who remembers?
We gave many points. We said money could be happiness, it could be greed, it could be luxury.
Yep.
We gave many meanings of.
That's right. So we were discussing, and you know, people usually associate many things with money. It's a good, it's a bad, it's a evil, it's this and that. So we said it's really what at the end wealth is. What is wealth? It's a trial, fitna. That's why we call it fitna. It can take you left and right. It really just brings out what's inside of you. Okay? And that's what we're going to talk about. See how we see it, as a matter of fact, money. Now, some years ago, there was an interesting paper by Sheikh Taqi Usmani, who chairs this IOFI, and he said, he put few points for Davos meeting when he was addressing that conference about the role of money in economy. And what is interesting, when I was going through this, you know, on dollar notes you see that famous writing, in God we trust. You know, you see it on every dollar bill. Now what does that mean? In God we trust. In God we trust, and then we do whatever we want? This is like people of Shuaib, isn't it? They said to Shuaib, like, you want to tell us that your prayer has something to do with the way we manage our money? And Ibn Kathir explained this. What they are trying to do is rebelling, and they didn't want anyone telling them how we make money, how we spend it. Do we pay charity? Do we engage in riba? Do we pay zakah? All of these things. So they were saying, like, this is like secularist understanding. You want to say your salah, meaning your Islam, tells us, business people, smart people, how we deal with money, how we spend it. Exactly, that's what we are saying. It's a big chunk of this prohibition deals with these transactions. So some of the points that we think, and this is what we see in both capitalism and the socialism or any other ism around us, we see that economy usually in these systems falls outside of the domain of religion. although as you will see, they have in their books, Christians, Jew, they have certain references to economic matters. However, they usually would consider economy outside, and it became some other thing, and it not associated, like people shall say, what it has to do with us making money, you're praying. You know, that's something you do in the mosque. Outside the mosque, like the people used to say, render to Caesar what is Caesar, meaning the whole life. And the mosque is the only place of worship. We don't bring these values outside. So this is what we have to consider, what is the relationship. Because how we earn, distribute, and spend money, and this statement of the dollar bill, in God we trust, how they are linked. You know. So we have to sometimes think about purely materialistic and secular approach to economy and Islamic, and assess how much trust we actually place on human idea and personal assessment. Those products that we said would destabilize the whole economic system and created global financial crisis. How much did we trust human intellect and personal judgment when creating these products and ignoring everything we know about the finance, every possible prohibitions? I'm sure these people had good intention when they creating these things. But, you know, as you can see, often good intention, if it is not checked with reality and the action, can lead to some systemic risk and the problems. So, in capitalism today, we see that religion and God are totally out of the picture. So, for these people, this is irrelevant to their economic activities. There is nothing. This is just symbolic that they are right in God we trust. That has no bearing on the way they manage their economy. As we say, Islam as a way of life means the way you affect things in that life. So if that statement does not reflect itself and express itself in the way you're managing things around you, that's empty statement. Doesn't mean anything. If it doesn't change the way you deal with things in that life, it's not a way of life then. So with these points, we say to reform the present system, there are a couple of things we have to do to reshape this based on some values, principle, and fresh ideas. This is what we want. This is what Sheikh Islam was talking. You have to have some values and principle and fresh idea to guide you to reshape economy. And we want equitable, well-balanced, and inherently immune from turmoils. You see, he's addressing these people who don't. What is this? What is this language? We are just here to make money. What are you talking about? Well-balanced, immune from turmoil, equitable. What are these words? We don't care. We are here to maximize. You know, so this is something new. And if we just concentrate on numerical growth, regardless what is the actual benefit that we receive in real terms, where is that going to lead us? If you're just building this phantom economy where riba is giving money, giving birth, where does that lead us? There was an interesting story one sheikh told me. There was this person in the village, and they wanted to teach him a lesson. Every day he borrowed some stuff. So they want to teach him a lesson. So one day this person came to him and said, I want to borrow your pot, for the food. So he said, okay, all right, I'll give you the pot, So he gave him a pot to cook the food. And he says, I'm going to give you this pot in 7 days. So he said, fair enough. So when 7 days passed, this person brought the pot and another one small pot. And this person asked him, what is this? Why are you bringing me pot and this small one? He says, you see, you are very generous. You give me this pot, and this big one gave a birth to the small one. Okay? I said, oh, mashallah, this is good, Anytime you want to borrow a pot, come to me. Okay? So he wanted to teach him one lesson. So next day he comes, he said, can I borrow again this pot? He said, yes, most certainly, here, the pot. Then after 7 days he come to him crying. He said, I have very sad news. He said, what's where is my pot? He said, forget the pot. It's very bad news. The pot died. Died. He said, what do you mean? How can pot die? He says, well, in the same way it gives birth, it can also die. So this is what we see. Riba in itself, giving birth to money that is not real. This is what riba is. And this keep growing so much until now, is this a real economy? Is there a pot like this that gives birth?
No.
So all of this economy, then, what we see that giving birth to riba, what we see now is, for example, is entire world economy now they say when there was this Barclay Bank scandal with LIBOR, they were fixing the interest rates to benefit and manipulate all these things. BBC had an article talking about a huge benchmark like LIBOR, how much contract is sitting on it. So they say this is the size of 800 trillion. You know 1 trillion? 1 trillion is 1,000 billions. So how many billions is this?
800,000
billions. Okay? How many is 1 billion? 1,000 million. So this is
800,000
millions.
million.
This is how much these birth riba gave us. This is how much LIBOR is benchmarking against. This is all. Is this real money?
No.
Does this actually, this is like pot giving birth, does it really exist anywhere?
Doesn't exist.
Only on computers and in imagination of these bankers. So when you see that they get paid 100 million a year, what is that? This is just a little bit. You see how many billions? 800,000 billion. This is 12 times everything we produce on planet Earth. 12 times entire GDP of the world, planet Earth, everything we do. How can economy grow to be 12 times the size of the everything we have? In fact, it's more than everything we produced in the last 20 years. How can you have that? How can you tell that? So what is this? It's in reality phantom economy, does not exist. And we will see how this connects to the real life and what are the consequences. Inshallah, we'll continue after the break. Welcome back. We are discussing Islamic perspective on wealth and money. Before the break, we were saying that due to this fictitious or phantom economy, where we use this phantom money and all of these things, we have grown the economy in some unusual, disproportionate way in terms of what is real in life. So these numbers from BBC, which I told you, they are disputed numbers. Maybe some say it's not 800 trillion, but give couple 100 trillion up and down. That's a matter for them anyway. So we see that where is the place of real economy? Imagine having real economy like a little child and all of these debt sitting. That's why we have these systemic tremors that shake economy, because it's just too much to absorb. So what we say when people ask us, how can you run economy without interest? What is our response? What do you say?
How can you run an economy with interest?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. How can you run economy with so much interest? 12 times that, imagine if you are 70 kilos and you put 12 times more on the top of your back. How can you run? How can you do anything? Doesn't make sense. Now, once the person is enchanted by this greed and creating this fictitious wealth, no amount of money can make him content. You see, he's never satisfied. As we know from the Sunnah, if he has a mountain of gold, he will want another one. What will satisfy him? Dust of his grave. So people are not satisfied, never. Just continuous, like person who drinks salty water, just want more. And he is more and more into the water, he wants more, doesn't realize what's going on. And that's what kills him at the end. So Islamic perspective on wealth is, we say wealth in general is anything that is legal in Sharia, permissible. We say usable and useful, has some material value, economic value, is capable of being bought, sold or stocked, has legitimate use, and can be physical item, usufruct value or intellectual property. So this is everything that is wealth that you can acquire. Okay, now different types of wealth, you know, you want wealth in general could have Sharia or economic value or both. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Anybody can, what do we mean by Sharia value and economic value in terms of the wealth?
Sharia value meaning it complies to, you know, Islam, you know, the laws of Sharia. Economic value, you know, it's practical in modern day.
Right. So could you give us example? Is there a Sharia value to this pen? Is it, according to Sharia, is it the wealth? Is it something that
It's
has some value?
It does have some value.
Yeah?
Yes.
Is there economic value in this pen?
Yes, there is.
Economic.
All right. Is there a case where this could be having economic value but no Sharia value?
Yes, there is.
Yes.
For example,
Alcohol.
alcohol.
Yes.
Yeah? All right. Now, alcohol is very interesting. Okay, so alcohol, is there a Sharia value?
No.
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 Okay. Is there economic value?
Yes.
How it is economic value if I, as a Muslim, cannot buy it and sell it?
Because it's something which some people take benefit from.
So, for example, for non-Muslim, there might be a value in that.
There might be value.
Okay? So, for some of the people who are not Muslim, there might be value. But for us as a Muslim, there is no Sharia value or any value. Because we are not allowed, this is not a registered type of wealth. Okay, from Sharia point of view. But we understand that for someone, this might be. Okay, that's why you, for example, you can't jump in the person's house and break his bottle of wine if he's not Muslim, for example. Some people, for instance, they may be converted to Islam. And their parents are not Muslims. They can't go into the house and break the bottles from their parents. If they do that, they have to compensate and not buy new bottles of wine, but compensate in money terms value, okay, if they did that. But they shouldn't do that anyway. So this is something that their business in private, okay, as we know. But from Islamic point of view, as a matter of economic asset, there has no Sharia value, no value whatsoever. But we recognize for some people who are not Muslims, in the given certain scenario, they might be in possession of these things, okay? Other characteristics of wealth is that they could be movable or not movable. Okay, so for example,
Land.
Is that movable or not?
Immovable.
Yeah.
Immovable. And movable.
House. So there are certain rules that affect these different things. For example, if you are declaring bankruptcy, for example, first, what do you think we would liquidate first?
His property.
First, movable stuff.
Movable stuff.
You know, I first liquidate the car before the house, because house is also more necessity item. You don't go first liquidate the house and then the car. Okay, so there are some rules that affect these things. And this is all we had prepared for you today. Inshallah, next time we will discuss and continue these aspects of financial transaction. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.